Nullaeus is the new Delve boss in Midnight Season 1, and in my opinion, the easiest one we have had so far. But while normal difficulty is a total piece of cake, really, hard mode might have some challenging moments. So today I will explain the mechanics and help you defeat this boss and earn a new mount. First of all, you want to do this fight as either a DPS or a tank. Healers are basically screwed here, because the boss has the ability Emptiness of the Void, an interruptible cast which is basically a guaranteed wipe. And, you guessed it, as a heal you don't have an interrupt, so DPS or tank it is. You also want Ravager to be your healer, not only because Nullaeus deals a ton of damage with his auto attacks alone, but he also has the ability Devouring Assets, a damage over time effect that basically gets instantly dispelled by Ravager if she is in healing spec. Playing as a tank can make this fight easier because it's much simpler to manage your health, but you also have to deal with one more ability, Imploding Strike, a massive hit that deals a good amount of damage, and you should always have some sort of defensive cooldown ready for this. Ravager in healing spec has these healing orbs which get summoned from time to time. Collecting these will heal you for a good amount of HP, but also give you a buff, healing you over time for the next 15 seconds. This buff stacks up to 4 times and gets renewed every time you collect another orb. You basically want to make sure that you have 4 stacks for the entire duration of the fight, making this much easier for you. Ravager also places 2 different effects on the ground, a green circle and a purple circle. The green one heals you while you stand inside, while the purple one decreases the damage you take by 20%. These are the base mechanics you have to look out for. The spell you need to interrupt aligns with the cooldown of your interrupt ability, so you can definitely do it all the time. At 75%, 50% and 25% HP, the boss enters an intermission phase where he summons adds and starts activating orbs, adding another mechanic you have to watch out for. After summoning the adds, he will gain a shield that makes him invulnerable and starts a long channel. In this time you can completely focus on the adds. Make sure to have your offensive cooldowns ready for this. If you don't kill them before Nullaeus finishes his cast, you will have to deal with both the adds and the boss simultaneously. First, at 75%, he will summon 2 Razor Shell Ravagers, which will spawn at the right side of the arena. They have a leap ability which they will use when you are too far away. This ability can be dodged and is not a big issue. They also cast Jagged Whip, a bleed effect that deals damage over time. However, this ability only has a 15-yard range, and if you are not close enough, they will cast this on Ravager. So as a ranged DPS you can just try to stay away from them and don't have to deal with the ability at all. Also, these adds can be stunned, interrupting the ability at least for a while. In this add phase, the boss activates the first orb, which will periodically spread lines of void goop on the ground, dealing damage to players inside. The damage of this is not too crazy actually, you still want to stay out of it, but if you need to get inside to collect one of Ravager's orbs, that's totally worth it and you should do that. After defeating the adds, it's basically the same as before, just with the void zones on the ground. When the boss reaches 50% HP, Nullaeus summons 7 Spitting Ticks at the left side of the arena. They have a stacking poison effect they can cast on you, which can get pretty rough. For these you want to keep both offensive and defensive cooldowns. Try to burst them down as quickly as possible, and when you get too many stacks of a poison, use your defensives to negate the damage. You can also stun these adds, so if you have access to an AoE stun like Warrior's Shockwave for example, that can definitely be helpful here. Since the adds always spawn at the left side of the arena, you might want to hold off with taking the boss below 50% until there's no void on that side, and you are safe to go there. While dealing with the adds, Nullaeus is activating the second orb, which summons a gravity well, a moving black hole that moves around the arena and sucks players in. Getting inside the black hole will deal damage, but the more annoying part is that it can pull you towards the void zones from the first orb and further away from Ravager's healing orbs. So now you have to deal with a black hole, the void zones, the interrupt and the healing orbs from Ravager, until the boss reaches 25% HP. Now Nullaeus will summon the final add in the center of the arena. Once again, you want to make sure to have your offensive cooldowns ready, and also make sure there is no void in the center when you reach that point. Also, if you have potions, drums or even better a bloodlust ability, this is where you want to use it. You want to deal as much damage to this ad as possible before Nullaeus is active again, because dealing with both of them simultaneously is gonna get really rough. Final ad is an Enslaved Voidcaster. This mob has a lot of health and spams Shadow Balls, which hit for 55k damage, as well as Shadow Crash, a dodgeable AoE effect on the ground you want to move out of. You can interrupt the Shadow Balls, which you actually want to do when a Void Zone is starting to appear underneath the mob, since he is a caster and won't move out of there unless you interrupt him. Just make sure that you stop interrupting the ad when Nullaeus' cast is almost finished, so you have your interrupt ready again for Nullaeus' Emptiness of the Void ability. The ad also gives you the Curse of Hesitation debuff, which reduces your movement speed for 5 minutes. This is a curse, so if your class can decurse or use invulnerability effects to get rid of it, that's good for you. Otherwise, your movement speed is slowed by 30% from here on. After taking out the ad, there's only Nullaeus left, but he also gets access to the ability Umbral Rage, a stacking buff that increases the damage he deals by 10% per stack. However, while I was doing it, the buff did not show up. I'm not sure if it was bugged or not, but I definitely still felt the damage increase, I just couldn't see the buff. Overall, it's definitely a tricky fight, but not as difficult as Kai'Veza or Underpin. Regarding Valeera's Kurios, I personally picked Porcelain Blade Tip and the Overflowing Void Spire. Both of them increase the overall damage you deal, and you don't really have to watch out for new mechanics, so they are definitely safe picks. If you want to be a bit more defensive, you can also pick the Mantle of Stars, which gives you a shield, absorbing 50% of your HP after falling underneath 40% on a 2-minute cooldown. Defeating Nullaeus on hard mode grants you the title The Ominous, and if you do it solo, you also get the Arcano Void Construct. This mount is my favorite one from the death bosses so far. I really wasn't a big fan of the flying machines, but this one is great. There also was a Hall of Fame for the first 4,000 players per region, but these are all closed already at the time you are watching this. But I managed to get inside there and got myself a fancy title. If I could help you, do me a favor and like the video. Also consider subscribing to the channel. I will definitely cover up the upcoming Delve bosses as well, and I have a lot of content for cosmetic items. Also, only about 8% of my viewers are actually subscribed, so let's turn small numbers into big numbers. Shout out to the channel members. I hope to see you next time. Until then, see ya!